Banksy Identity Mystery. In the vast, glittering universe of the modern art world, a universe defined by celebrity, by faces, by personalities as famous as their creations, there exists a ghost, a phantom who has never attended his own gallery opening, never posed for a photograph, and never given a formal interview. Yet, his name is more recognizable than almost any living artist. He is a myth, a whisper on a brick wall, an invisible vandal who somehow orchestrated a complete conquest of the very establishment he seeks to undermine. This is the story of Banksy, and it begins not in a pristine London gallery, but on the grimy, rain-slicked streets of a city buzzing with creative rebellion. To understand the phenomenon, we have to go back to Bristol, England, in the 1990s. This wasn't just any city, it was a cultural crucible, a place where the slow, heavy beats of trip-hop bands like Massive Attack and Portishead provided the soundtrack for a generation of disaffected youth. It was a city with a long, proud history of dissent, and that energy was seeping through the cracks in the pavement. And it was here, amidst this vibrant subculture, that a new kind of visual language began to appear overnight. At first, they were just simple tags, but soon they evolved. Sharp, witty, and politically charged images started materializing on walls, bridges, and forgotten corners of the city. They were almost exclusively created using stencils, a technique that speaks volumes about the artist's intent. Graffiti, in its traditional form, is often a time-consuming art. Stenciling, however, is about speed and precision. It's a hit-and-run operation. An artist can prepare an intricate design in the safety of a studio, then execute it on a public wall in a matter of seconds, melting back into the shadows before anyone knows they were there. This method was Banksy's first and most crucial innovation. It allowed him to create complex, repeatable images with the efficiency of a military operation. One of his most famous early Bristol pieces, The Mild, Mild West, depicted a cuddly teddy bear lobbing a Molotov cocktail at riot police. It was funny, it was aggressive, and it perfectly captured the city's anti-authoritarian spirit. But as these images proliferated, a question began to form. First in Bristol, and then across the UK. Who is Banksy? The artist's refusal to reveal his identity was, initially, a practical necessity. Street art, no matter how celebrated, remains an act of vandalism in the eyes of the law. Anonymity was a shield against prosecution. But it quickly morphed into something far more powerful. It became a statement. In a world obsessed with the cult of personality, where an artist's backstory and public image can often overshadow their work, Banksy made a radical choice. He erased himself from the equation. His anonymity forced the public, the media, and the critics to confront the art on its own terms. There was no celebrity persona to dissect, no scandalous life story to sell papers. There was only the image on the wall and the raw, unfiltered message it contained. This deliberate act of self-effacement became the cornerstone of his brand, a brand built on the very absence of a traditional brand identity. This secrecy cultivated an unprecedented level of intrigue. The mystery became the marketing. The media went into a frenzy, launching countless investigations to unmask the guerrilla artist. Was he Robin Gunningham, a former public school boy, as a 2008 investigation suggested? Or was he Robert Del Naja, a member of the band Massive Attack, whose tour dates often suspiciously coincided with the appearance of new Banksy pieces in the same cities? The theories became a global parlor game, but every investigation hit a dead end. Banksy, or the collective behind the name, remained one step ahead, a ghost in the global machine. This relentless speculation, however, did something extraordinary. It generated more publicity than any multi-million-dollar marketing campaign ever could. Every new piece was a global news event, not just because of the art itself, but because it was another clue in a worldwide scavenger hunt. The artist's facelessness allowed him to become a universal symbol. He wasn't one person. He could be anyone. He was the voice of the voiceless, a symbol of rebellion that people could project their own frustrations and hopes onto. By having no identity, he assumed all of them. This profound enigma, born from the practical need to avoid arrest on the streets of Bristol, was the perfect foundation for his assault on the global art world. He had crafted the ultimate artistic persona, a complete and total lack of one. And with this power, he was about to turn his attention from the streets to the very heart of the establishment, exposing its absurdities in a way no one had ever dared. Block 2. Art World Paradox. Having built a global reputation on a foundation of mystery, Banksy was now perfectly positioned to execute his masterstroke, to wage war on the commercial art world from within its own gilded fortress. This is the great Banksy paradox. How did an artist who fundamentally despises the commodification of art become one of the most commercially successful, blue-chip names on the planet? The answer lies in a series of audacious, brilliantly executed stunts that were less about selling art and more about exposing the very system that buys and sells it. He didn't just critique the art world, he infiltrated it, played it, and beat it at its own game, all while remaining completely invisible. His first line of attack was the museum, the sacred temple of high culture. Between 2003 and 2005, Banksy embarked on a series of guerrilla art installations. Disguised in a coat and hat, he would brazenly walk into the world's most prestigious institutions, the Louvre in Paris, the Tate Britain in London, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and simply hang his own work on their walls. These weren't just random acts of vandalism, they were surgical strikes. At the British Museum, he installed a piece of rock art depicting a prehistoric man pushing a shopping cart. It stayed there for 8 days before anyone noticed. At the Brooklyn Museum, he hung a portrait of a colonial-era aristocrat wearing a spray paint gas mask. Each piece was a Trojan horse, a satirical commentary smuggled past the gatekeepers of culture. The message was clear and devastatingly effective. Who decides what qualifies as art? Is it the intrinsic value of the piece or the blessing of an elite group of curators? By placing his work next to priceless masterpieces, Banksy was questioning the entire mechanism of artistic validation, and the fact that his pieces often went unnoticed for days was a hilarious indictment of the institutions themselves. He proved that the context of the gallery, not necessarily the content of the art, dictates its perceived value. But these museum pranks were just the warm-up act for his most ambitious critiques. In 2015, he unveiled Dismaland. Located in a derelict seaside resort in Weston-super-Mare, it was a full-scale, functioning theme park that served as a brutal satire of consumer culture and corporate escapism. Billed as a family theme park unsuitable for children, Dismaland was a masterpiece of dystopian art. It featured a dead Cinderella in a crashed pumpkin carriage, surrounded by paparazzi, a grim reaper riding a Dodgem car to the tune of Stayin' Alive, and a model boat pond filled with refugees. It was a vicious, brilliant, and darkly hilarious takedown of the manufactured happiness sold by corporations like Disney. By creating an immersive, large-scale experience, Banksy expanded his critique beyond the art world to society at large, forcing visitors to confront uncomfortable truths about inequality, celebrity worship, and environmental disaster. Yet, no single event encapsulates the Banksy paradox more perfectly than the stunt he pulled at Sotheby's auction house in 2018. The piece for sale was one of his most iconic images, Girl with Balloon. The bidding was fierce, finally closing at a staggering $1.4 million. The gavel fell, the room applauded, and then something extraordinary happened.
An alarm sounded, and to the horror of the wealthy collectors in the room, the canvas began to slide downwards through a shredder secretly built into the bottom of the frame. The artwork self-destructed the very second it became a multi-million-dollar commodity. It was the ultimate anti-capitalist statement, a literal destruction of value. But here is the paradox. The act of destruction didn't destroy the value at all. It created an entirely new piece, a piece of performance art history retitled "Love is in the Bin." And in doing so, it instantly became even more valuable, later selling for over $25 million. Banksy had tried to destroy his own creation to protest its commodification, and in the process made it exponentially more expensive. This single event is the perfect metaphor for his career. He is the ultimate puppet master, critiquing a system that in turn rewards his critiques with ever larger sums of money. His anonymity is his trump card. Because no one knows who he is, he can't be personally accused of hypocrisy. It's not a person selling out, it's an idea, a concept that is being valued. He remains the ghost, untouchable, while his work performs this complex, contradictory dance with the very market forces it seeks to condemn.
Block 3. Banksy's cultural legacy. So, after the shredded paintings, the dystopian theme parks, and the decades of hiding in plain sight, what is the true legacy of this invisible vandal? Banksy's impact extends far beyond the dizzying auction prices and the endless speculation about his identity. His most profound achievement was a fundamental re-engineering of our perception of art. He took an art form that was almost universally dismissed as vandalism, as a public nuisance, and single-handedly dragged it into the mainstream conversation of high art. Before Banksy, the term street artist was, for many, a synonym for criminal. After Banksy, it became a legitimate artistic discipline. He built a bridge between the gritty alleyway and the pristine white walls of the gallery, forcing the art establishment to recognize that a message sprayed on a wall could be just as powerful, just as nuanced, and just as valuable as a masterpiece on canvas. He didn't just open the door for other street artists, he blew the door off its hinges, creating a global platform for a generation of artists who use the urban landscape as their canvas. Beyond legitimizing a genre, Banksy redefined the role of the artist as a social and political agitator. His work is rarely just about aesthetics, it is a weapon. He is a commentator, a satirist, and an activist whose canvas is the world itself. He travels to flashpoints of conflict and injustice to make his statements unavoidable. His work on the West Bank Barrier, for example, is not merely art, it is a direct political intervention. An image of a girl lifted by balloons over the massive concrete wall is a poetic and heartbreaking commentary on freedom and confinement. His walled-off hotel in Bethlehem, which boasts the worst view in the world, is both a functioning hotel and an immersive piece of political theater, forcing its guests to confront the reality of the occupation. He has tackled consumerism, police brutality, the refugee crisis, and environmental decay with a wit and visual clarity that cuts through the noise of the 24-hour news cycle. He has proven that art doesn't have to be a passive object in a gallery. It can be an active participant in the most urgent conversations of our time. This approach has inspired countless others, democratizing the very idea of art as a tool for change. Banksy's methods, the stencils, the anonymity, the guerrilla tactics, have become a playbook for activists and artists worldwide. He has shown that you don't need a gallery's permission or a critic's approval to make a statement that resonates with millions. All you need is a can of spray paint, a clever idea, and the courage to use a public space as your platform.
This has sparked crucial conversations about the very nature of art, ownership, and public space. If a Banksy appears on a privately owned wall, who owns the art? The building owner? The artist? The public? When a local council scrubs one of his pieces off a wall, are they cleaning up graffiti or are they destroying a valuable piece of cultural heritage? These are not easy questions, and Banksy's entire career is designed to force us to ask them. He operates in the gray area between art and crime, between public service and private property, challenging us to rethink our long-held assumptions. Ultimately, the Banksy paradox, the anti-capitalist who became a global brand, the celebrity who has no face, is a perfect mirror for the contradictions of our own era. We live in a society that claims to value authenticity while simultaneously commodifying every genuine expression of it. We celebrate rebellion, but only when it can be safely packaged and sold. Banksy embodies this struggle. His enduring anonymity is perhaps his final and greatest work of art. It is the one thing that cannot be bought, the one part of the myth that the market cannot consume. In the end, it doesn't matter who Banksy is. The name itself has transcended any single individual. It has become a symbol, an idea, a global franchise for dissent. The mystery is the masterpiece, and his true identity is less important than the powerful legacy he has already painted onto the walls of the world.